In part 1 of this many-part series on the Great Southern Railway, I rode the roughly 60 kilometres of old rail from Cranbourne to Nyora across the impassable swamp. I do not recommend anyone try it. However, today is a different story. The roughly 20 kilometre section from Nyora to Korumburra. Firstly, it's a rail trail, which is nice. It has a cracking story and it's the perfect out and back day ride if you start from Nyora or vice versa. Waterfalls, funky towns, breathless beauty, an easy 40 odd K return roll. Trust me, it's pure bliss. Well, here we are in part 2 and there it is, the Great Southern Rail Trail, and this is where it starts in Nyora. And this little section to Loch is only 5.5 Ks. It's really, really pretty. We're going to show you that. But firstly, what I'd like to do is give you a bit of a rundown of Nyora. And where better than to start at the railway station, the Nyora railway station, which we're rolling to now. Next train. Not today, my friend. It's all about bikes. And this is it. You can see across here there would have been shunting yards. That's your old goods shed there. So trains lined up. Got all the stuff put on it. Nyora in the 1890s and for decades was a very important rail hub for assembling trains to head to Melbourne, with dairy and livestock and timber and critically coal that was mined from Korumburra, Jumbunna and Outram. This coal kept Melbourne alive. However, being the junction for the Wonthaggi coal mine line, opened in 1910, means it played a huge part in this state's history. I'll tell that story in my Bass Coast Rail Trail series coming soon. It's a cracker. So that's Nyora right there. It's the start of the Great Southern Rail Trail. Now, after the brutality of the first section that I rode, this is where normal people, like you, would start your ride. So this is it, the start of the rail trail. Next stop is Loch. There's some very, very pretty countryside in between here and Loch, only 5 and a bit Ks. Rolling kind of downhill into Loch. And we're going to get to the story of a couple of the crazy things that happen along the way. But let's get rolling. Let's get into this ride. Aha, look what I've discovered in Nyora. Oh, there's a footy ground, you can probably see that, but that's a speedway. One of the great things about country towns is that they have speedways. And you basically stand on the edge of that. You can just see the wire netting. You stand there and you watch, but you've got to wear your raincoat because you get splattered in mud. It's hilarious. Now, a bit of not boring history. The great Count Strzelecki, a Polish explorer, surveyed the region now known as the Strzelecki Ranges in 1840. This survey was part of his major expedition from the snowy mountains into the region he named Gippsland. After ascending and naming Mount Kosciuszko in March 1840, his party, which included James MacArthur and Aboriginal guide Charlie Tarrah, headed south. They entered the dense and rugged forests of the ranges. Enduring a famously difficult 22-day trek, the party eventually emerged, exhausted and starved at Western Port Bay in May 1840. One of the little-known stories about the building of the Great Southern Railway was where we're going to put it. It's very steep, it's very wet, and there's lots of trees. So when the railway was sort of beginning to be discussed in the 1870s and really agitated for by the people, the few pioneers that lived down here, the route which they were going to take was not easy and it was definitely not clear. It took them a long time to work it out. So after much toil and incredible surveying work, the route that was chosen was the route that we're riding today. And we're going to be riding across this whole series. Basically with pick and shovel, gelignite, bullocks, they created what we're riding on right now. Through sheer force of will and grit, Falkingham and his Navvies literally blast and cut their way through the forest. Out 3 Ks, 2 Ks from Loch, and you can just start to see the beautiful green rolling hills of South Gippsland, which I think are pretty unique in, I think Victoria, because they are so beautiful and just so unbelievably green nearly all the time. Hello. A couple more riders up here. Hello ladies. Coming up extremely quickly behind you, only joking. Do you want to be on the TV show?
Oh, sure.
All right, right next to me here. So I've met a couple of ladies here who are enjoying the rail trail. You girls locals?
Yes, Nyora.
Nyora. See if we can get you in shot there. So Nyora, I just did a bit of a roll through. A couple of things going on in Nyora. You know what my favourite would be?
Speedway.
The Speedway.
Oh, the Speedway.
How good's that?
Yeah.
Do you ride this very often?
Oh, we try to, probably once a month or more.
Beauty. Do you know the history?
Well, Nyora was the junction between Korumburra and Wonthaggi during the coal mining era. Yeah, it was the...
That's where the train from Wonthaggi came from.
And further down from the station, there's still the old turntable.
Nice. Well, we're going to go and check that out in another sort of series.
Three pits for the locomotives.
Oh, wow. Got to go check that. I'll let you guys go.
Right.
Have a safe ride.
Thank you.
And that's what rail trails are all about, meeting lovely people on the trail and chatting. Rolling down into Loch now and crossing the beautiful Bass River. And here we are rolling into Loch railway station, and Loch railway station really was a massively busy railway station for many years. See, the operation of the line lasted more than 100 years. So once it opened in about 1891, it really took off, and this whole area just exploded and expanded. And here was a whole bunch of shunting yards, and this was the centre for bringing produce from all over the area and putting it on the trains and sending it back down to Melbourne so people could eat it. So you can see the Great Southern Rail Trail is incredibly well signposted, and it says welcome to Loch. Righto, let's go check out Loch. Loch, as in the Loch Ness Monster, not lock your door because you're about to be ag-burged, was named after Sir Henry Loch, the popular governor of Victoria from 1884 to 1889. Like all of the towns on this line, the railway made this tiny hamlet boom big time from about 1890 onwards. That's the old Royal Hotel, which I think now is a private residence. It used to be a guest house. Anyway, it was a pub. But Loch itself is full of these gorgeous little old historic homes. Incredibly good distillery, which I've been to before. And there is actually a historical walk you can do around Loch, which takes you to the hotspots such as the Lockup, the courthouse, Loch Village food store, which I've been to, Olive at Loch, which is fantastic, incredible food in there, galleries, Loch and Key, restaurant and bar. What's up here? Oh, here we go. Just a Teaspoon. Might have to go and try that out, I reckon. Hello.
Good morning, how are you going?
Good, thank you. And you?
Yeah!
This is an excellent little place. I'm filming right now. Do you mind if I film you?
That's okay.
That's great. I'm Jeetho. I do a show called Ghost Rail Rider.
Oh, cool.
So I ride all the old railways and tell some stories. So I'm going to buy
nice.
a coffee off you. So what was your name?
Maddie.
Maddie, righto.
Yeah.
So this is one of the newer places I've seen in Loch. And Maddie, I've been to Loch a lot of times.
Have you?
And this is great. And it's like a little shipping container. Is it a shipping container?
Tiny house.
It's a tiny house. This place really sums up Loch. It's such a little foodie place now,
Pretty
isn't it?
much, yeah.
Here I am at Just a Teaspoon, which is just off the main drag in Loch. And we've had lovely Maddie serving us, and check out what I'm about to eat here. Funny thing is, my family, part of them are from Foster, which is on the Great Southern Rail Trail. In fact, I remember the train going through. That's how old I am. And Loch was this tiny little town that was basically dead, completely dead. We used to go through it, never stop, never a reason to stop. And the transformation that's happened to this town and a lot of the towns on the Great Southern Rail Trail, which pretty much all of them, frankly, they've just all transformed into these places that when you ride here, you stop and you can have great food, you know, really restaurant experiences, cafes as good as anywhere. Really quite arty-farty. It's a fabulous little spot, but I particularly recommend you drop into Just a Teaspoon and visit Maddie. Right, Maddie?
Pardon?
Yes, just say yes.
Yes.
That's what I said. Under the highway again and back on the rail trail. Next stop is Jeetho, but there's a bit to talk about before we get there. Just leaving Loch now and heading up the hill, and this is the hill that Falkingham had to conquer. It's not a big mountain, it's only about a 300-metre climb, but the thing with the Strzelecki's is it goes from very flat, where the Rup swamp is, to very steep. And the thing with railway lines and trains is they've got to be 1 in 40 or more, because any less than that, the train can't pull the carriages up the hill. So they had to find a way through this sort of spiderweb of valleys and work out how to snake their way up to the top of the hill to get over the mountain range, past Korumburra and further on to South Gippsland. So the hills around here that you can see behind me, if I just do that, are covered in trees. So when Falkingham and his team hit this spot, they were greeted with 150 foot, 200 foot high trees. So what's that, 75, 80, 100 metre trees. And they were so dense that you couldn't even walk through them. They were impassable. Everywhere that we're riding now was completely impassable. In fact, the tree stumps, or the trees, were so big that they would often hollow out the guts of the tree, chop off the top, pop on a roof, and once hollowed out, they could sleep 50 navvies inside the tree stump. So if you can imagine how big the trees must have been, it cannot understate the engineering difficulties and really just the genius of Falkingham and his engineers and his navvies to get a train line up through here. So we're going under the freeway again and starting the gentle 1 in 40 climb up to Jeetho. I think there's something special along the way too though, so we're going to check that. So on the way to Jeetho, on the trail here, you come across Hilda Falls. You got a nice little spot to stop. And there they are, the Hilda Falls. And you can just sort of see some of the denseness of the forest that would have been here. Just chuck a drone up and see what it looks like down there. What do you say? The Hilda Falls were named after the daughter of the key figure in the railway's construction, in honour of Mr. W.G. Fields, the surveyor responsible for laying out the section of the railway line I'm now riding on. Okay, now I need you all to chill out for a sec. Enough chatter. Listen to the sound of rubber on gravel, the sound of riding a rail trail. It's the serenity. Okay, I know it's a little unsettling having a quiet moment, but that's what you really feel when you ride this trail. Actual serenity. So the railway line here followed the Allsop Creek, which was where the Hilda Falls were, just back there. Weren't they pretty? And there's the little Allsop Creek. You can see just trickling there. And up the way here, not too far, is Jeetho. It's probably a good time to start talking about camp life. So the life of a navvy was unbelievably tough. Not only were they paid a pittance, often they were flogged out goldfield workers who didn't make their millions in finding gold and had to find work, and in the late 1880s, 90s, gold rush had wound down anyway, so getting labour wasn't hard, but the conditions that these poor buggers had to live in was atrocious. And the next town is one of the big navvy camps. That town's Jeetho. I'm going to tell you a story about that. It's important that the navvies, where they did have their camps, and believe me, they weren't glamping. It was basically a piece of tarpaulin and a couple of sticks holding it up, no floor. And remember, it rained here all the time, and it was muddy, and they'd be working all day in the rain, cutting down trees by hand, and then having to go back to their tents at night. So having running water near you, like the Allsop Creek, was really important, because they used that water to drink, and so did the horses, and so did every other animal that they had. And eventually that water became very poisonous. So once we get to Jeetho, we're going to tell you the story of camp life a little bit more, but I'll tell you what, I don't think anyone ever grew up saying, I want to be a navvy. That's a fact. That green grass just is soothing to the soul, just the colour green. Come out to the countryside like this, and you see this, and everything's okay. And that's cows loving it. Look at the grass they're eating. Doesn't get any better than that, does it, you lot? They are cows too, I think. They've got udders. Might be bulls. I think they're bulls actually. Yeah, they're all bulls. They'd be getting fattened up so they can go and be served on a plate at Gimlet. I'll see you at Gimlet, guys. And here we are at Jeetho. Have a look around you. What do you see? Well, you can see this place where the old railway station was, and that is it right there in front of us. You can see the mound. All now obviously overgrown, but that's where the station platform would have been, right there. I doubt that there's any remnants left of anything. We might check it out. Let's see if we can find anything of the station remnant, shall we? Got some rabbit holes. I like the station. There we go. What's back here? No, not a lot. But that's the trail where they would have brought the produce up, unloaded it on the station just there. A couple of crimson rosellas. Hello, guys. And off it went to Melbourne. Dairy, beef, more dairy. Anyway, the story of Jeetho goes something like this. The story of Jeetho is typical of one of the camp towns. So in this little valley here, where there is absolutely nothing at the moment apart from the remnants of a railway station and the old rail line, which is now a rail trail, you can just see fields. See that? This used to be a tent city. Hundreds and hundreds of navvies lived here. Before the navvies, there's hardly anyone here. There's a tiny, tiny little kind of, I don't know, not even a village. Nothing here. But when the navvies arrived and the train came through, the town exploded. So back in that valley was just hundreds and hundreds of tents. The navvies often brought their families and their kids. The kids went to the local school. And where I am right now, along this road, there were shops, all manners of shops serving all the people everything. A lot of it was alcohol. And the Navvies had a bit of a problem with alcohol. So up the road here, just on the right, there's something pretty cool. So up here was the old coffee palace. So much alcohol was being drunk by the Navvies that the Temperance Society decided they would start a coffee palace. So those who decided to get off the evil drink, and the coffee palace is just up here, where it says private access, you can't get through, but it was there. It was a place where people who did not like to drink could go, and it was quite an establishment. There was also other shops that were joined to it, and it all got burnt down. And it wasn't very successful anyway, because let's face it, after you've been chopping wood and giant trees down for a day, and then a week, and then a month, and then 2.5 years, the last thing you want to do is have a cup of tea, trust me. So we're in the main drag of Jeetho here, and as I said before, this would have been shops and teeming with people at night, all sorts of crazy antics going on. It was said that the alcohol that was being drunk by the Navvies, that was being served most likely illegally, was laced with all sorts of things, and a great proportion of the Navvies actually went crazy because they drank probably ethanol and other things. So it was a rotten life for these people. They were drinking and washing and cooking in the same water that all the animals that they brought with them were doing every other thing and drinking into. So you can imagine the dysentery. Oh, horrible. Now, okay, so we've left the rail trail, seen where the shops were, and now we're checking out Jeetho Hall, which is the only thing left in Jeetho from the day. This is in 1892. Why this is significant is this is where the Shire halls were. When the rail came through, this was basically the capital of the whole area, and this is where they ran the council from, and etc., and on and on. However, poor old Jeetho, well, Korumburra came along, and Korumburra became a much bigger and much more important town, so they moved the Shire offices from here up to there, and this little thing just became a hall. And you can hire this out for weddings, should you want to get manacled. Still climbing up the hill. Have a look at that bloke. Look at him. He's only got 2 jobs. One of them is to eat. I wonder what the other job would be. Mind his job. Big unit. There we go. Jeetho. Back to the rail trail. Quite fun to imagine what it would have been like here 120, 30 years ago, with all these people teeming, building, the noises, the activity, and then of course the 100 years or so that the railway line ran for. Pretty cool stuff, really. Well, here's crazy, but that's okay. I am back on the Jeetho rail trail, so behind me is Bena and up the hill, so it's a big climb from here. But I have been going on about the size of the trees that the Navvies and Falkingham had to cut down. And there's one over there, and it's only tiny compared to what it would have been like. So that's just a small one. So I'm going to fly the drone over, and we're going to have a look how big that thing is.
After that gentle moment where I thought about my feelings, it's on to Bena. Unlike some towns that existed before the train arrived, Bena was established specifically in anticipation of the Great Southern Railway. Originally called Cromwell, Bena is an Aboriginal word for lyrebird. The railway line reached Bena in 1891, and for a brief period Bena was a bustling hub
for hundreds of navvies and boasted a large 40-room hotel, a coffee palace and several shops that sprang up almost overnight to serve them. The Bena Bank is a notoriously steep section of track leading up to the town which I am riding right now, and was a brutal climb for steam locos, often struggling to haul heavy goods trains up this grade, sometimes stalling and requiring a second engine. Bena was a boom town, but it all changed when roads were built. The pub lost its licence and was demolished in 1942. The butter factory closed the same year. So, what's Bena like today?
This is Bena, and Bena is one of the cutest little towns. So here we go. The Presbyterian Church, 1908. Presbyterians, known for their parties. Would have been a rockin' establishment, that one. And what do we got in good old Bena? We've got what looks like, dunno, but it looks cool. Some sort of old store, maybe. I wonder what that is. I think it could be some sort of old, I don't know, antique or interior place or something. Can you see in there? Oh wow, look at the floor. I don't know if you can see that. Where's the camera? Can you see that in there? That is mad. That is absolutely so cool. I have no idea what it is, and I have no idea whether you can see it or not, but it's mega cool. Well, there's not much left of old Bena, considering it was such a thriving place when the train was being built. Lovely old homes. Look at that one. Paparoa. Gorgeous. Look at every one of them. House proud as can be. On point. This is a town that cares about itself. Well, that's all she wrote when it comes to Bena. But as you heard in my incredibly interesting voiceover, it has a great history. Well, let's jump back onto this rail trail. Oh, missed the turn off. And get ourselves on. Missed it again. What a dope. Get ourselves back on the journey and back onto the next phase and the next adventure. And the next adventure is pretty wild. And it starts down here. So this is the last section of, whoa, baby. This is the last section of part 2 of the Great Southern Railway Rail Trail story. And the story of Bena and Korumburra is a cracker. So we're at the top of the hill now. And one would have thought, okay, getting a bit easier now. Well, when they were surveying this line, what's a bird? Look at him, look. They're worse than magpies. Must have a nest. Anyway, so when they were surveying the railway line here, before they built the railway line, obviously, in the late 1870s, 1880s, they got to Bena, and believe it or not, where we are now, you can't really tell, but where we are now was the thickest forest of all. And we're talking 200, 300 foot high trees. Those trees were 200 to 300 years old. And because it's so wet in this part of the world, not today, although it was raining before, because it's so wet in this part of the world, it very rarely got bushfires. So the trees were very old and the scrub was very thick. It took 12 surveyors 2 years to battle the way through the green wall, through here where we are right now, to actually work out where to put the railway line between Bena and Gleongatha. Can you imagine that? Being in the thick of the bush, camping for 2 years, surveying, trying to work out where on earth you're going to lay a railway line. That I find amazing. Anyway, further along from here is another great story about this rail line, and it's a story which I still laugh at. I think it's hilarious. Let's just enjoy this part of the world and thank those 12 surveyors who lost 2 years of their life trying to work out how to put a railway line through the thickest forest in Australia.
Right, so I didn't really have to find Whitelaw because there's a massive sign where the station was. And as I was riding up, I was thinking, that's too big a flat area to not have something to do with the railway. Well, it was the Whitelaw station. And the actual platform was on the right of the trail on this drone shot. You can just see a flat bit. But the funny thing about that station, and one of the curious things about this railway line, was after they'd opened it in 1891, in about the mid-1890s, the Victorian government was like, how come there are so many stations on this railway line, and every one of them had to be built and staffed, when there's nobody here? What is that? So when the surveyors were coming through in the early 1880s to actually survey the railway line, and we talked about the 12 people that did this bit, about 80 people would sort of congregate. They'd say, let's all stand on the side and pretend we live here. So when the surveyors went through here, and we were just working out this is where the railway line is going to be, all these people turned up behind me in the bush. We're talking total forest, impenetrable forest, except for 80 people standing here saying, we'll live here, we need a station. And they're like, really? Do you really live here? Yes, we live here. All right, you get a station. So Whitelaw Station was built, but nobody lived here. Anyway, there was an inquiry about it, and there was a few people got in a bit of trouble about it. It was the story along the whole rail line. There's lots of these little stations that were built, but nobody actually lived here. I think that's beautiful, and this is what's left of Whitelaw. Look at it. Same amount of people that lived here before they built it. And here we are, Korumburra. Jonathan Falkingham and his army of navvies created something special. They changed history forever by building the railway line to Korumburra through swamps, impenetrable forest, steep grades with landslides, using just picks and shovels and gelignite and bullocks. And what they did was they changed this region forever. And they built a rail line that enabled vast tracts of this state to be opened for the very first time. And if you have any doubt how important the rail was to this region, just check out the Korumburra railway station, which is under renovation, as it should be. But it's a grand reminder of Victorian times and how important rail was. And you can still see the rail line there. So that's the story of Falkingham's incredible effort to build the rail from Dandenong to Korumburra. From here on, it was the second contractor of 3, O'Keefe. But next part, we're going to check out the town of Korumburra, and we're going to discover a ghost town and an actual ghost rail.